Yep.
Good evening. It's Monday, August 26, 2024. Welcome to episode 77 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. Tonight's going to be a kind of an amalgam of thoughts and ideas ranging from preparedness to some political observations and current events. And we'll touch on some of the week's happenings from the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, and the suspension of RFK Jr.'s political campaign and subsequent endorsement of Donald Trump. We'll also be discussing why some constituency groups stay on the government plantation despite decades of undelivered promises, and how I was able to save us $4,000 with a single phone call this week. So I think that'll be maybe some good information for people moving forward. It might save you some money as well, if you ever run into such a thing. But we'll also be doing clip of the week, the weekly poll, and did you know, and a quote from a liberal or conservative, but you're going to have to make the call on that one. But first things first, how are you doing this evening, Rebecca?
I am doing great. We got to have one of our grandsons we don't normally have around to be here for the day and take part in doing things around here, chores, and going to the store with me. And he's absolutely cute. He showed up with an Amish hat. So while we were in the store, there were some interesting looks, but very, very cute. He also got to ride the ATV all by himself, super stoked that his papa let him ride let him ride it all by himself. And he let me know that when he got home, he was going to let his siblings know that he got to do that.
Yeah, it's all about bragging rights with siblings, man. They seem to get so competitive with like, hey, I got to do this and you didn't. And, but that's, I guess, the fun of getting to watch grandkids grow up and getting to kind of participate in that to some extent. So yeah, that was cool having them over. Yeah, London's going to be having burgers tonight, man. That sounds good, man. We had burgers last night. Nothing like a home cooked meal, especially one that you raised yourself. So I was pretty stoked to be looking at all the things on my plate last night and feeling proud how much of it actually came from things we either raised or things that actually we grew out of our own ground, out of our own soil. And that's just a really good feeling, man. I mean, we're kind of all in this preparedness thing. We're all in this prepping mentality and that mindset. And along with that, the food that you grow is all part of that. And so we were having our own version of In-N-Out burgers last night. And the way she's been making them, to me, it's better than going to In-N-Out. For one, I know where it came from, and it's made with all really, really good ingredients, no bullshit, and it's all whole foods. So I'm hoping that you're enjoying your meal tonight. But yeah, if you guys could just let us know, how do we sound? I kind of switched some things around here. So just give us a 5x5 if everything's coming through good. But yeah, good evening, Tim Riley. How are you this evening as well, along with Skane's Girl in London?
Awesome. So glad to see you guys.
Yeah. One of the things that's been pretty nice, and I'm assuming you guys are probably experiencing it as well, but we're transitioning into the shoulder season. It's starting to feel a little bit more like, yeah, thanks for the 5x5. It's starting to feel a little bit more like we're heading and transitioning into fall. We're not by any stretch of the imagination out of the heat wave period. In fact, it's supposed to heat up for us again around here this next week up into, the hundreds, but that's cool. What really makes it nice though, when we start transitioning at this time of the year, is you actually get it to cool off at night, and you get it to cool off. It's nice and cool in the morning. So rather than having to run our AC all night or something, we're able to enjoy just pulling in some outside fresh air with our whole house fan. And yeah, I'm just really kind of getting excited for the changing of the season. I actually pulled out all the remaining of our corn, and then I got real festive around here and started kind of doing a little decorating on the front of the house with some pumpkins and corn stalks and whatnot. So we're moving into that Halloween harvest season.
Yeah, I came home from town and was surprised with pumpkins and chairs sitting out in front and the corn husks all,
Yeah.
or corn stalks, I should say, all tied to the pillars in the front.
Yeah. I don't always do that, but I guess, I don't know. I'm taking I guess a page out of my dad's book. He used to always do that. And I don't know. I just felt kind of a little bit more in the season this year. So maybe this year we'll get a Christmas tree. I don't know. Typically, I don't even like getting those things, but we'll see. Yeah, you got to ease into these things. This isn't.
As a matter of fact, there was one year he was so adamant about not getting a Christmas tree. That's right.
I wasn't. Go ahead. I'll finish your story.
I made a Christmas tree out of construction paper.
That
pasted to the wall, including decorations.
That was one of the classics. That year was a classic. We got pictures of that. No, I mean, I don't know. It's like, okay. It's different when you have kids in the house. You guys know that, right? And then the kids leave and then it's just you and your spouse. And unless you got somebody to help you decorate the damn thing, you're just out there putting ornaments on and, hey, we've got this tree and we put presents under it. And then it's like you're taking it down in a couple of weeks. And it's just to me, it's a waste of time, but she likes it or whatever. So
they smell good.
They do smell good. They do smell. You want to tell them about the year I made a Christmas tree?
Oh my goodness.
That was a good year too.
Yeah, you're going to have to describe that one.
Well, I just, I made the trunk out of 2x4. I put some 2x4 together and then I drilled holes in it. Right. And then I got a cypress tree out front and I just trimmed off some boughs and stuck them in the damn thing. And it would look good.
Mm-hmm.
Did it not? It looked good. But anyhow, I'm a do-it-yourself kind of guy. And yeah, we'll see how it goes this year.
The one thing I have to say, even the construction paper tree, grandkids still took the ornaments off of it, just like a regular one.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about, I guess, and while I was out on my run earlier this week, just kind of thinking about where we are in the year. And you know what? We're in the 8th month now. So that's 2/3 of the year gone. We've got, 4 months and we'll be into 2025. And I started really thinking about the things that I've gotten done around here and where I need to go in order to prepare ourselves for the future. And it just kind of occurred to me, I guess, as I'm out there just thinking, while I'm doing my thing. And I was just thinking, it's such a good reminder at this time of year, at this point in time, because I really do feel as though, a lot of us, and I can't speak for anyone other than myself. I'm just saying this is my perception, that it seems like society is just kind of in that glide path of, hey, what's going to happen next? We're waiting for the next thing to happen. And then, another news story comes in and we react to that news story. And, that's never going to stop. That's going to keep going. And we're always going to have things that are going to come up that are going to pose challenges to us. And so it just was a clear reminder to me to make sure that all of the things that are important to us from the standpoint of preparedness, that we have in order. And I would just encourage anybody who's going to listen to this just to go back and maybe just reevaluate where you are in your own preps and make sure that you have the things that you need in order to make it so that if something were to happen, then your life would be least disrupted. And so how I look at that, there's like 3 things that I focus and key in on, as the staple. And then there's all those other things that you can build in around that and start to fill the gaps with that. But the first thing for me is water. That's life sustaining for everything, not only the food you grow, but the animals that you husband, you're taking care of, but also yourself. You need water. And so water is just a critical element. And so I always make sure that I have redundancies on my property. I always make sure that I have the ability to deliver water to the things that are important to me if, in fact, there's a disruption of services. And so that's like number 1. Number 2 is food. And not only food for ourselves, so we don't have to leave this property to go someplace to get food if there's a disruption, but food for the animals that we have here. And so that's one of the reasons why I've worked pretty diligently and tried to be very creative with feeding my animals with what exists on this property. And so even if there's something that happens where, you know, another supply chain issue, another whatever it is, and you can't get to the store to purchase the things you need, you're going to be set. You're going to be in your spot, and you're not going to, you know, have much of a disruption in that regard. And then the last thing that's very important, and you know, people can argue about this all day long, where you place this in your order of priority. But for me, it is absolutely energy, because that's going to be the thing that allows me to maintain a certain level of comfort in my home. So whether I am using wood, whether I'm using petroleum products, either LPG or gasoline, right, or some other kind of a fossil fuel to heat or to provide energy, or electricity. So either you're getting that from the grid, or you're, you know, in some way getting that, you know, you're generating yourself via solar. And so those are very important things to me. The only other thing that might take a precedent in bringing in the hierarchy of that would be just life-saving medical things, such as medications. But all the other stuff, you know, medically related, not to say it's not important, but I can't eat a tourniquet. I can't drink a tourniquet. I can't drink a chest seal. That's all cool shit to have. But for me, I can make bandages around here. I can make a tourniquet out of the things that I have at this property. Might not be as good as a cat, you know, cat 7, right? But that's just kind of how I'm viewing it. Now, if I have the ability to have those things in order, you know, all my energy needs met and all my water and food, then I start filling in those gaps around there with regard to making sure that obviously you've got, you know, the ability to defend all of that stuff, right? But I think most preppers, generally speaking, have some kind of a pew, right? Some kind of a way to defend their property. So that isn't something that most people would need to just run right out and put to the top of their list. But like I say, food, water, and energy, those are life-saving. And, you know, it's going to fight off all kinds of things, hypothermia or whatever. And the reason why I'm, I guess, thinking in this regard is just because we don't know what's coming. It could be anything. And I would suspect that a lot of us have probably war gamed out ideas in our own head about, like, oh, it could be a zombie attack. It could be an EMP. It could be a this. It could be a that. Well, it could be all of those things. And I just think that at this point in time, we are gliding through the rest of the year. It's a real good time to just think about where you are in your preps and start to, you know, move toward making yourself better. Because that's what we talk about on this channel a lot, is making yourself better each day. Doesn't come all at once. It's an incremental thing. And I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, because I was just thinking about it the other day while I'm out there in the woods, just wargaming things in my head and kind of doing a mental flush, and just thinking how important that is. What do you think, Rebecca? You're awful quiet over there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's wonderful that we were able to tap into the water that we suspected that we had on the property, but didn't do anything about it for many years. And I know that we've always considered the pool an option. So that's great as far as the water. And it's awesome that as far as we've got the solar all lined out with the batteries. And I know that you can rent them, but we opted to purchase and have those, and they're certainly doing their job. So yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that you put out there as far as, you know, you can make bandages.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't eat a bandage, but you know what else? You can't eat an ultra marathon either.
Well, that's true.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
That's true. They're not very tasty. They leave a bad taste in your mouth. I wouldn't advocate that. But yeah. What did that have to do with anything? You just thought you'd throw that out there?
Money.
Oh, money. Yeah. Well, speaking of money, you know, solar systems are supposedly pretty expensive, right? They do cost a good deal of money. And, you know, we kind of thought about, hey, we could lease this thing or rent this thing. And what we actually did is we amateurized it out over the course of a number of years. And we had to figure out, like, hey, what do we actually spend per year for our energy needs? What do we pay Pacific Gas and Electric for our energy needs? And then we put that out over 12 years, and we come to find out that, hey, you know what? In 12 years, we would have actually paid for this thing. And so that's really the plan. We purchased it in 2015. And so 12 years later, we will have basically, it'll have paid for itself, if you will, and we'll be making our own energy at our own cost without, going through that whole thing. But I mean, people might be surprised if you were to actually go see what your yearly energy bill is. It may not be that much, but ours was pretty substantial. And so, it just made sense for us to do that. Now that we have the batteries, it's fantastic. We just looked at it. We're like 420 kilowatt hours we've already dumped back into the grid, which I'm not really super pumped about. But what that does is it buys us later on in the year, if we don't have sun, we can use grid power and we're still not going to have to pay because we're to the good on the, what we've dumped back in. Yeah, enough of the solar stuff and enough of the prepping stuff, but we just thought I'd throw that out there. Let me jump into the weekly poll. And so what I had done is I put out a question that said 4 of these 5 social media platforms need to be eliminated. And then I asked the question, which one would you keep? And so 264 people cast a vote. And thank you guys for your participation in these polls. I think it gives me an understanding of kind of what people are thinking, or at least the people that are respondents to these polls. And I like to see how it kind of aligns with the way that I'm thinking. And so this wasn't really a surprise, but one thing actually did surprise me. So this is how it broke down. About 7 out of 10, 69% said YouTube was be the one that they would keep. Next up was X. So 22% said that they wanted to see X be the platform that they kept. Now, this is the one that surprised me. TikTok came in third with 5%. And it beat out actually Facebook, which was below that at 3%. And then the bottom was Instagram, not surprising to me at all, at 2%. What would you keep if you were going to keep one of these, Rebecca?
I would probably keep YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have TikTok. So, I'm sure that plays a factor. I don't have X either. If I had those, and those were profiles that I went over and kind of interacted with, maybe my opinion would be different. But I do have YouTube, and I actually do listen to quite a bit of podcasts and whatnot on YouTube.
Yeah, I think that's a not surprising at all to me. That would have been my choice as well. YouTube is a very useful platform for not only educational, but entertainment as well, and also information at this point. I do think moving forward, though, that thing's going to kind of change as, as the information flow becomes a little bit more restrictive, I think, on platforms like YouTube. I think that's only inevitable. Right now, I think we have a decent amount of freedom and a decent amount of ability to speak our mind. You still can get a warning, or you can get a strike, or you can actually get your channel removed depending on how they want to pursue that. But things have kind of lessened since the whole COVID thing and the Ukraine war and everything. It's a little bit freer to say what you want to say without getting those dings against you. But nonetheless, it's not a free speech platform, and I don't really think actually one does exist. So I would have said YouTube as well. It's my favorite platform of these. I am surprised that Facebook came in underneath TikTok, because a lot of people use Facebook, not only for Facebook Marketplace, but all the different groups and things like that it has available to it. I don't use Facebook. I used to. I just don't like the platform. I haven't been on it in a couple of years, if not more. Same with X. I don't have an X account. I don't like Twitter. It's just my thing. I like YouTube, and I go to TikTok because I think TikTok is actually a pretty damn good search engine. But other than that,
So I should say that I do watch TikTok, but that is watching it with you.
Yeah. We pull up different clips and things that I see, and I find it interesting. and we watch them together. But
I don't physically have TikTok on my phone.
Mm-hmm. Skane says that she chose X. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people appreciate the ability to go on there and get information kind of in a more unbiased and free way. You're going to have left and right opinion, but that's fine. That's what freedom of speech is. It shouldn't be just an echo chamber. You should have that debate on there. You should have both sides of the story to make your choice with. And I think that that's one of the things that I really feel strongly that Elon Musk has done a really great thing for this country and quite honestly for the world to have done that with this platform. He didn't have to do that. A lot of these rich people have chosen a different route. And I would hate to think what it would be like that the richest man in the world would be somebody that would want to control, people's thoughts. I mean, we're kind of almost there, but I think it's awesome that he's done what he's done. I really, I feel strongly about that. I didn't know how to take the guy at first, but,
yes, I would agree. I would say that I was kind of reserved at first, but are really starting to appreciate him as time goes.
Oh yeah. He's funny too. But
he is funny.
He's a funny dude. Let's see. It says without training wheels says only have YouTube, want a better alternative. Others are also closed communities. There's other platforms out there. Some people, they use Nostr and they use, these different alternative platforms. Rumble is cool. I like Rumble. But it just doesn't have the traction that some of the other platforms that I mentioned did. I really do like the direction of Rumble and how they're being managed and, where their information is stored on their own servers and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's really huge. But, you got to go where people are at. And so if you want to go to an alternative platform, that's cool. Not to discourage that, but, you don't really get much play on those places. So we'll just see how it all, that's the marketplace, right? If it's a great product, people are going to flock there and they're going to want to use that thing. You can't force that. It has to be something that people want organically. And, the strong will survive and we'll see. So let's do liberal or conservative. This is a quote that I'll read, and it's from somebody who I think is a very smart person, but this is that quote. He says, racism is not dead, but it is on life support, kept alive by politicians, race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. So, Rebecca, if you had to guess, would you say that came from a liberal or conservative?
I'm going to say liberal.
Okay. I probably would have said the opposite of that, saying that it came from a conservative, but that's just my perspective. I'll tell you now that it came from Thomas Sowell. And Thomas Sowell is an American economist. He's a social philosopher and political commentator. He's also a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. He's got many books and he's widely published, not only, as an author, but, he's been on a lot of different programs and very smart guy. His political affiliation is that he was a Democrat until 1972. And then after, he became an independent. So since 1972, he has been an independent. And so he's not really, I would say, ideologically aligned with the Republican Party per se, but I would say that listening to him speak, he is somebody who is conservative minded, and he's aligns with liberty. And he's a very sharp guy, very well respected. And, he happens to be black. And I only mention that because it shouldn't be important what color his skin is, but it seems to be very important to some people in politics, knowing what color a person is, to put them in a box is very much something that is done, particularly from the Democrat Party. they really want to identify people and label them and put them in a certain pen, if you will. And so that's the only reason that I mentioned that he's a black guy. But yeah, you saw a lot of that kind of thing at the Democrat National Convention. I wanted to speak a little bit about that this week. And it was a convention that I didn't really watch because I don't really have any interest in Democratic politics. I think that the party has really lost its way. And I think it with so many people who have actually defected from that party, it really speaks to their intelligence for seeing what it actually has become. And so if you look at some very notable people that used to be Democrats, they've defected. People like Elon Musk. I think he's got a pretty high intellect. He's been able to become the richest person in the world as an entrepreneur. So he's got to have a little bit of smarts, and he decided to defect. You got people like Tulsi Gabbard, who's decided to step away. You've got people like Donald Trump, another entrepreneur who's put himself in harm's way for the betterment of this country, I believe. He used to be a Democrat. There's a lot of people who have left the party, and it makes me wonder why there's so many people that are stuck on the plantation. Because essentially that's kind of what it's like to me. It's seemingly like a government plantation of people that have been put in a box, and they haven't been able to break free from that. And the thing that's interesting, I suppose, to me is you didn't think they would have any excuse, right? Mm-hmm. For why they haven't done that. And I look at places like North Korea, where you see all the throngs of people out there waving their flags as Kim Jong-un drives by. And he's got all his marching parade behind him, and everybody's smiling and just, there's the dear leader. And they're either doing that because they're going to get killed and their whole family's going to get killed if they don't, or it could just simply be because they don't really know any better. They don't have another option. They don't have other information to consume. So what information they consume, that's their worldview, and that's what they truly believe. But here in America, we actually have multiple places for you to get your information. And it just blows me away that people can be fooled over and over and over with the same message being put forth to them. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But one thing that was, I think that I wanted to show from the DNC that I thought was a bright, shining example of something that I felt a little bit good about, and that's Cuomo. Because I've been no fan of Chris Cuomo. I don't like what he did during COVID. I think he was just carrying water for the Democrat Party and the platform that he worked for. And what I did see, though, is him actually getting up there and calling a spade, if you will. He was calling balls and strikes. He wasn't playing politics. No, I like to see that. That's his job, is to point things out like this. Because let me tell you, I don't live in that world. I don't really know what goes on in a Democrat National Convention. I do know that the parties are run by big money, but I didn't realize to what extent the people up in the suites, what involvement and how much money's actually up there. And I have to give it to Cuomo for actually pointing this out. So check it out.
To you that has to be spoken to here, okay? Greg, look at the ring of suites, okay? This is not unique to Democrats. There is a game of money. When people talk about uniparty, we are strangled by the money reality in our politics. Those suites start at 500 grand. You think there's like a teacher group up in there? You think it's like the Cub Scouts of Columbia County, South Carolina, that's up in those boxes? Those boxes are filled with the same people that they say they're going to regulate. They are literally looking down on the faithful and being told, yeah, we're going to break down on them. We're going to make them pay their share. They paid $500,000, $700,000, $1 million, $1.5 million to have those seats. And the same thing is true with the Republican side. And they're going to take them down. They're going to change how it is. They are looking down from on high at the people who make the difference in their communities. And that is the reality of politics.
Yeah, so I have to give it up, like I said, to Cuomo for that, because he doesn't have to do that, but he's pointing something out that I think is an obvious reality for people on the inside. And there's so many of those folks that are on the inside that do have that knowledge, and they suppress that knowledge. They don't tell that to the people. They slant it, and they give you their version of the propaganda that they've been paid to promote. And so that was one bright shining example of from the DNC. But it's kind of shocking to me how many people, particularly in the Black community, that are stuck on that plantation. And you have to ask yourself, why that is. And I think for me, there's really only two reasons that people vote, two primary reasons. And that's why they're aligned in the way that they are. That's why that they have, for years kept coming back to the same party that's told them lie after lie after lie. They're stuck on that plantation. They're essentially like a slave, and they don't even know it. They can't even make the choice for themselves, because if you don't vote for them, then you ain't Black. There's people that'll tell you that. I've heard them say it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's pretty interesting, but the two reasons is economics, right? They're going to promise you that, hey, we're going to make your life better by giving you some little bit of money. And then the other thing is, the reason why people go to the polls is because of their values. If you're going to present something that's going to enrich their life from the standpoint of morality and values, that's going to be the other thing that's going to drive you there, right? Because if they tell you, hey, that person's going to, challenge or go after the things that you hold dear, maybe that's, your right to have an abortion. Maybe that's your thing. And if they say the other side is going to threaten that, then that's going to drive you to the polls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot, they're going to say, hey, I'm going to make your life better via taxes or what have you. And, those are the two things that essentially are going to make people align with you and drive you to the polls. And that goes on both sides, right? Left or right. So I understand why they're doing it, but it just amazes me. Every year they trot out the same message. And for some reason, some people just, they can't get themselves broken free from that. But I do feel fortunate. There's a lot of people who are kind of waking up and they're getting their message out there. But Candace Owens, she's somebody who's very smart, somebody who I respect for her opinions and the way that she's able to eloquently express them. I think she's a great debater, and she knows where she stands as far as her beliefs, and she's going to defend those. And so I like people like that. And she has a take on why Black people in particular are stuck on that government plantation.
The Black vote's not going to matter. Something that they worked so hard for is not going to matter. They get enough illegals in. What are we at? 10 million under Biden? And they're doing it intentionally. Like, it's going to be the same thing that they did to Black Americans in the 60s, what Lyndon Baines Johnson did when he established welfarism and the Great Society Act. They want to get these people in, offer them handouts, and turn them into economic slaves that will continue to vote for Democrats because they're getting free handouts. And it's incredibly racist, first and foremost, but because Black Americans are still, a lot of Black Americans, I should say, are still living under this deception that Lyndon Baines Johnson was a good president, even though he was an avowed racist. This man is being hailed as a hero because he had to sign the Civil Rights Act, essentially with a figurative gun to his head because the country was on fire. JFK had just died, and there were riots in the streets protesting because of racism, and he did not want to sign it, but he did. And with the other hand, he signed the Great Society Act and incentivized welfarism and, programs to incentivize not marrying the Black men. To think that we had government agents knocking on the door, going into the homes of Black women and being like, there better not be a man that lives here. We're just here to check to make sure. If you want this check, Dad can't be home. Every other ill that Black America is facing today is because we've removed fathers from the home. So
Yeah, it's a really sad situation. The housing projects that were built during that period of time. A lot of my relatives lived in those projects. A lot of my relatives, some of them died out of those. It's a violent place. It's a violent way to be brought up. But it's essentially, to me, the way that I think about it, it's just a way for them to keep people out of their neighborhoods, right? They're a constituency group that they can have a reliable vote. But she's exactly right that once they get this country flooded with illegals and other people, blacks are not going to be needed for that vote. They don't really care about blacks per se. They don't really care about anybody per se. All they care about is power. That's the reality of all of it.
Power and money.
Yeah. And, I agree with what you're saying there without training wheels. You say root of all evil, because that's essentially what it is. I look at these people who full well know the lies that they're telling people. They get up there and tell bald-faced lies. They distort the truth in such a way that it's just lies, and they know it too. And the thing that's terrible about that is that there's actually people who are stupid enough to fucking believe them. Whether it's Gavin Newsom or whether it's Nancy Pelosi or whether it's any politician that's going to get up there and say the things that are going to get them more enriched when they know they're telling a lie. I think that is the root of all evil. Those people are sick. They're narcissists. What they do, in fact, this is exactly what they do. They are master manipulators. Narcissists are. And what they do is they use a tactic called psychological projection. So they project on you that which they are doing. Is it essentially the black pot calling the kettle black, right? They're projecting on you what they're doing. So that's why you hear them say things like Trump's a racist, because everything in their history and everything in their past is completely racist. That's why you hear them come out and say, oh, JD Vance is weird. You hear Tim Walz saying that shit. And you look at that guy.
He is an odd duck.
He's a fucking weirdo.
He's strange.
He's something wrong with that dude, man. And it's just that way that they are putting on you what in fact they are doing. No, we want to secure the border. It was Donald Trump that wanted the border open, right? He's the reason why we have 20 million fucking illegals here. They'll sit there and tell you lies like that. And then some people, stupid as they are, will actually believe that. And I think that's how a lot of Black Americans, a lot of other constituency groups fall for this nonsense, because they play on their sensibilities of not only money, right? But, their economics, but they also play on their sensibilities as far as their morality and their value system. It's very hard when you challenge a person's value system. And if you do that, you're probably going to come up against a brick wall. And that's why we have so much, people at odds in this country. If you try to tell somebody, oh, no, Trump's not a racist, and they already believe that he is, you're not going to get anywhere. The thing is that there's been, well, I'll get to that in here in just a moment, but let's see here. Oh, yeah. Skane says, love me some Candace. Yeah, she's good, man. I really like her. I don't agree with everything that she says and, in the way that she says it or whatever, but that's fine. I think that there's so much validity to the things that she says. It's a shame we can't have people like that who would be elevated to a position of, office, quite honestly, because she's somebody who has values. She's somebody she's articulate. And then look who they've got in there right now. And she's only there because of her skin color. That's the only reason Barack Obama was there. He's no fucking Mensa student. He's not a brilliant man. He's brilliant enough to have gotten himself where he's at and manipulated himself in a corrupt system. I will say that. But he's not like top of his class, right? So these people got there because of who they are from the standpoint of race. The Democrat Party is very focused on race. They're very focused on dividing people, and they're very focused on demonizing their opposition. In fact, what I heard just the other day, they said that Trump was mentioned 400 times at the Democrat National Convention, and apparently Biden was only mentioned twice in the whole thing. And 400 times, that's all they talked about was Trump. Because they're vacant of actual ideas on how to fix shit because they've been in control for 12 out of the last, 16 years already. And this country's where it's at. It's there because of them and the things that they've done. They've created riots in the street and then said, no, you're the problem. They've created a dishonest electoral system and then said, no, don't talk about it. So how are people supposed to respond? I think one of the ways that people have responded is doing what, RFK Jr. did. And that just happened day after the DNC. I think that was, I think that was a big deal. Will it matter in the election? I'll tell you this, if the election was fair, it would 100% matter. But don't put anything past the people that are willing to do anything to win. It happened before. So don't put anything past the fact that, people are coming out and saying, oh, this is a done deal. Well, they said that when Trump got shot in the face. Oh, this is it. He's going to be elected. Are you not realizing who you're dealing with here? You're not realizing what the system is?
Yeah. I mean, they didn't really even talk about it. It was just, it had happened and out of the news.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think it's a big deal though, because he is Democrat royalty. If you think about that, another brilliant man, another smart person, a very respected individual, not respected by the establishment in the Democrat Party. They've thrown him out. They've taken away his Secret Service. I heard they just took his Secret Service detail away like today or yesterday.
Trump's?
No, the RFK.
Oh.
Because they denied him that. And then when Trump got shot, then they're like, oh, we better step it up here because we're looking kind of bad, So let's give RFK the C squad. We'll give him all those chicks, right? Mm-hmm. They just pulled it yesterday or today. And so I don't know. What does that say about our government? What does that say about their willingness to protect life? They obviously don't want to protect life with a lot of their policies, right?
Yeah, no, they've got plans of brewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so RFK, he came out, and I think it's a big deal, man, because it's not going to change anything with regard to, the people who have already made up their vote, the 35, 40%, 40% maybe of people it's already baked in. But there are some persuadables. There are some people who are, going to look at this like, hey, there's an opportunity for me to, change my vote and maybe vote for Trump because he's not going to be on the ballot. The thing that I think RFK did wrong, and I really think that I think it's an error for him not to have pulled his name in all of the states. For him to say, well, I'm just going to pull him in the battleground states. I understand why he did it. And that was because if there was some kind of a tie electorally, 269 to 269, then it would be this contested election that he could come back into and compete for. I understand why he did it in that regard, but check this out. By him keeping his name on the ballot and assuming that, oh, these red states are already spoken for and these blue states are already spoken for, I reject that premise, because let us not forget that Ronald Reagan won 49 out of 50 states. What do you think Trump can't win California? I absolutely do think Trump could win California if it was a fair election. The problem is we haven't had one of those for a long time. So, without drop boxes and dead people and all the other things that have been baked into the system that we just accept and say, oh, well, I'm not in a battleground state. What that does when you do that, it suppresses people's enthusiasm. It suppresses their desire to go out there and actually cast a ballot because they believe and they know in their hearts, oh, California's already off the table. No, the fuck it isn't. That's why you get the chance to vote. We can do our job and vote. The problem is can they do their job and count the votes accurately? That's the question. Do we still live in a system where the votes are going to be counted in the way that we hope they will? So our voice is heard. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. But I absolutely think Trump could win in a lot of these other states because people are waking up. I actually just, on my Instagram account, right? It's not a political account. It's an athletic account. And I don't talk politics over there. You know, people can know I'm, you know, from the right or whatever. I don't really give a shit, but it's not why I go there. You know, it's to have other interaction over there, other motivation. But there's actually some people that have been there that I've been following for a dozen years that haven't said jack shit about politics. They've kept it to themselves, and they're coming out and they're saying some stuff. And from the right, not from the left, right? From the right, they're coming out saying some stuff. And I go, oh, I didn't know he was a conservative. Oh, I didn't know he felt that way. Oh, she's kind of getting, you know. And so that kind of thing is happening. People realize this is a big deal. This is a big election. And I honestly agree with that. So check this out. This was an interview recently held with PBD and Brett Weinstein. Brett is a very sharp guy. He's been on Rogan. He's been on a lot of different, you know, things. He's been making the circuit, you know, for years, but very smart guy. And I enjoyed what they had to say. So let's check this out.
I think this is him stepping aside, him not being in the battlegrounds, him supporting Trump, and him trashing the Democratic Party that he left.
Well, I think this is absolutely monumental because I think we are in a novel moment in American political history where many of us who hold different positions on the political spectrum, have different priorities with respect to policy, are finding that none of our differences matter in light of the jeopardy that the republic is in. And so what he is effectively doing here is he is saying those differences aren't going away, but they're just simply secondary. And he is both structurally, by withdrawing from certain ballots and not others, he is emboldening a movement that is more widely recognizing that those differences have to be put aside until the main job is done. And he's leaving himself an important voice in that discussion. So I was very interested in the way he navigated the idea. This was not a simple endorsement of Trump. This was an endorsement of retaking the White House and using that position to restore the republic to its proper course.
Now understand that there's been a lot of friction in his family regarding this decision for him to do that, because his family is obviously steeped, you know, in Democrat politics. In fact, I understand like 5 of his relatives are working on the Biden campaign. So they're going to come out and they're going to say some shit that doesn't make him sound good or whatever, like he's a traitor to the party or whatnot. But here's just another guy who's seen enough, right? He's actually waking up. He's getting off that plantation. And I think that's a really good sign for this republic. But here's the problem is if the election doesn't go in the way that many of us hope that it goes, it could be a real turning point in this country, because then we will have lost. And that Muslim dude that I've been playing for you for weeks, you know, what he's been saying will have been true. I would like to think that it's not, but I definitely hear what he's saying, and it gives me concern. Let's finish up here with what Brett had to say. Let me fast forward it to the spot and we'll hear what he had to say. Now understand he is a Democrat himself, lifelong Democrat. And this is what he had to say.
Forcing Trump, does this cause a guy like you to be open to the idea of voting for Trump versus Kamala?
Oh, absolutely. Let me just be perfectly clear about this. I think the modern Democratic Party is an existential threat to the republic. And although I am a Democrat, I've been a Democrat my whole life, the party that I see in front of me today is literally the inverse of the party I signed up for. This is now the party of war. This is the party of racism. This is the party of censorship. I don't recognize this party. There is no conceivable scenario in which I would vote for Kamala Harris.
So there you go. You know, there's another defection right there. And I don't view myself as a Republican per se. I view myself as a conservative. And I would vote for somebody who makes sense. I would vote for a Democrat. I would vote for Tulsi Gabbard. I would vote for, let's say, Donald Trump, because he used to be a Democrat, right? I would vote for people who have moved away from politics that don't make sense. And so many people have, but again, there's so many people trapped on that plantation. And it's largely because of apathy. It's largely partially because of ignorance. And another one is, again, those two main things, economics and cultural values, and a little bit of social pressure, I think, too, from some people, to fit in. But it's pretty funny because you see them trotting each other. They get trotted out every 3.5 years and say, "Hey, look what I'm going to do for you." And you see them standing there in the church, right? They're trying to get some rhythm. They're clapping their hands and they're, not even with the beat, right? And they're standing there in some black church, trying to do their thing. And it's just so gosh darn disingenuous. You just have to kind of laugh at it. But some people get it. I think this brother does.
Democrats going to come down to the hood and pretend that they're going to do something and disappear for the next 3.5 years and then show back up like, "Hey, niggas, remember me?" I'm so sick of this. It's the same thing over and over again, and everybody's pretending like we don't see it.
Yeah, that's on the real, man. That is so true. I mean, how can you not see it? It's just so pathetic, right? But let's see what he said here. London says, if RFK jumped, I bet other high-profile Democrats will jump ship. It's all about timing. I've heard a little bit of something like that. I think he had actually mentioned that himself, saying that other people will be coming forward. To what extent that's going to have an impact, I don't know. I don't particularly get enthused about people endorsing, some person like, "Hey, I'm voting for some." I don't give a fuck who you're voting for. It's none of my business. I'm voting because of what that person who I'm voting for represents, but all of these endorsements are a little bit of, showmanship. And the reality is those people are influenced by that. I know that I'm actually influenced by people who are lifelong Democrats that are saying, "You know what? I can't take this shit anymore. This is like getting ridiculous." I respect people who have been able to make a change in their life. I know that I've changed a great deal throughout my life. I just still have, I guess it's interesting to me how people can go through their entire life and just be the same person, the same shit, believe the same things, never change anything. They don't learn anything new. As society evolves, you learn new things, and that's part of growing up. But some people matured in their 30s and they're still fucking 30 when they're 80, and they never change for whatever reason. It's a very interesting thing to me. But
I still think that it would be wise for Trump to actually come to California.
Oh, sure.
And campaign.
Yeah. This is not off the table, man. There's a lot of people who are like not cool with what's going on. There's a lot of people who have woke up, but see, what we don't get is we get this algorithm that shows up in our feed to make us think, "Oh, so-and-so's doing this." That's the whole point of polls. That's the whole point of that whole thing. It's just to provide that optic, that image, so that when they do what they do behind the scenes, it makes it a lot more plausible for the people to accept. Like, "Oh yeah, I guess she won, or I guess, he won." Whatever the eventual outcome is a little bit more palatable for people when they kind of have an understanding of what the result is going to be going into it. And so that's one of the reasons why they do the polls, right? And it definitely has an impact on enthusiasm and people's turnout and the election. That's election interference. But I would love to see Tulsi on the ticket too. I think that if somehow Trump gets back in, which I find highly doubtable, just because, man, they just do not want that dude at all costs. They're going to pull out some bullshit. I'm telling you, in the next 60 or 70 days, hold on. You're going to see some shit that's going to blow you away.
Well, you've heard him talk about the mpox or the monkeypox.
Yeah.
And I've heard him say that that's a whole nother COVID play. In other words, you got to stay in your home. You don't want to, it's highly contagious. And that opens it back up to the mail-in ballots and all of the fraud that will come along with it.
Sure. Yeah. They're going to find every way they can to manipulate things. Here's something to point out. I haven't really seen a lot of my president, my Joseph Biden. He's not real happy, man. That guy's kind of an angry dude. Don't you think? I mean, I could see why he'd be a little pissed. They forced him out and now they've, kind of ushered him off or whatever, but he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's very angry.
Just a tiny one.
And I've seen him be that way his entire life. But it's even worse now. And he just couldn't get Trump out of his mind when he was at that DNC when he gave his talk. Weird.
Who do you think he is? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. 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 Donald 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 Trump.
Biden. I'm not going to use the name anymore. Just one time.
Who does he think he is?
Yeah, he's a pretty angry old dude, man.
See, that's a little kid having a temper tantrum.
Of course, the whole thing, man. I mean, I was listening to somebody today, and I was hearing Obama talk, and all the things that they're saying. It's just that projection. They're projecting all of the things that they are doing themselves onto the other side, and the media. And see, that works for them because they never get challenged on it because they pretty much control the mainstream or legacy media, right? Which is just a government. It's just a government like implement for them to use. And so they can just say whatever bullshit they want and it's going to get chopped up and rebroadcast and it won't get challenged on any of those places. But, that's why places like this exist, I guess, and others where we can come on here and talk about it and call their bullshit for what it is. But it's an angry group of people. See, weren't they saying they're the happy warriors, right? That was their thing. We're just happy warriors. But you see that and you go, that's not happy. These aren't happy people. They're just angry and they're trying to whip people up. And who doesn't see that? It's sad. But I would vote for Tulsi for the first woman president, Skane says. Hillary, Kamala, no effing way. Yeah, those people, man, I'm telling you, they're very much just like part of what those people up in those suites are controlling, right? And as I said last week, they would care less if it was, somebody from the right or the left that they're controlling, one of their chosen people that's next in line, John McCain or, Bob Dole or Mitt Romney or somebody else who's carried the water for years. Oh yeah, he'll be suitable. Let's put that person in there. And that's how you wound up with Kamala. Nobody likes her. She's not that smart. But she's next in line because they aligned themselves with being black and being a female. And they can't just like overlook the black female when she's already second in charge, right? But, I don't know. Let's see. Donald Trump. Yeah, he is. He's definitely living rent free in their heads, but there's so many people that have that Trump derangement syndrome where they just wouldn't vote for him in any circumstance. I do think she will get a job if in fact, Trump gets in. I think that will be a pretty stellar cabinet this time around. Trump made some bad choices last time. He was in the swamp. He didn't know how to navigate it. I think he went in pretty naive. And probably learned a lot. So if in fact he gets back in, which I kind of seriously doubt, because what did he say the other day? Oh, we're going to get to the bottom of this JFK thing. You think they're going to like go willingly with that, right? You think they're going to just like, oh, well, let's let the vote go fairly. We'll see what the American people want to say. And it's not as much the American people that I think are the problem. Or excuse me, it's not as much Trump is the problem as it is the American people because he's the voice for ordinary people. They don't want the voice being heard from ordinary people. They want to squash the middle class and put you down so that you're on the plantation with the rest of the people in the housing projects. That's what they really want. That's what I believe, because they haven't done anything to show otherwise, right? They want to keep the rich people rich and the poor people poor, and they want to squeeze the middle class, even though they're saying, hey, it's the
We want to raise you up to the middle class.
Right.
They want to eliminate the middle class.
Yeah, it's the Republicans that are doing it, right? They're the ones. Who was shut down during COVID? Was it the big businesses and box stores and the tech companies? No, it was the small business owners and the family businesses. That's who took the hit during all of that. So it's not about the middle class, guys.
It'd be interesting to see if Trump starts coming to his rallies in one of Elon's cars that's bulletproof.
Cyber, yeah, that ain't bulletproof enough, man. They need something really bulletproof. Yeah, they can't afford to lose all that campaign money for sure. Let's see here. Where am I going on this deal? Oh yeah, I got to play this one for you guys because we were talking about the whole racial thing, so we might as well throw this in because who can forget this from just a few weeks back, where we had Kamala trying to sound like she's black even though she's from Canada. And she doesn't. I mean, what are you trying to sound like? Somebody you ain't. And then there's Hillary, of course, right? She's from the hood, of course.
Yes, that's pretty choice.
So when they get up in front of black people, right, they got to pander. They got to sound a certain way. So
feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Yeah, who's believing that? Who's that for? I pity the fool that buys into that. How can you not just be totally offended as a black person, right?
It's just ignorant.
It's sad, I don't know, man. How could you not just be offended by that? You get up and you try to sound like somebody you ain't and to try to impress me, but I don't know. It's crazy. Let's see what Hogs has to say here. It says California talking about giving up to 150,000 free money to illegal immigrants for first-time home buying in your hard-earned money. I have not heard that yet, but that is actually kind of shocking, even though I live in California and I understand it's a pretty, you expect to be shocked. That's interesting. Yeah, man, send me the link to that. I'd like to check that out, or maybe I'll just Google it or something. And that's wonder who's paying for that. You think that's coming out of the middle class, or who's paying for that? Is it they just going to print more money, I suppose? Interesting.
That's that other, when you read your bill and there's a little fee.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell you what it is. It just says other.
Yeah. Without Training Wheels says she ate biscuits and gravy that morning. That's awesome. Yeah. Skane says it. I don't know, man. That whole racial politics, I don't identify that way. I hope that people can get beyond race, but it's something that's omnipresent in politics because they will not let it go. They're always keeping it in the forefront, just like that quote that I read from earlier, right? It's always there. And it started to, from what I understand, kind of mellow out in this country, but it came back in full-fledged, form with Obama. I think so many people thought, oh, he's going to be different and this and that, but he was very, very divisive. And that's I think sad. He had an opportunity to really be something great. And the only reason that he's looked at as being great is because of his adoring, left-wing media that will just say and overlook anything that he does, or, everything is glowing about him, right? He's such a great orator. He's this, he's that. And, Meanwhile, they've got all these homes everywhere, right? They own like 4 homes. They're millionaires many times over. And then they're going to denounce people for trying to come up, right? Taking too much, is as they say. Oh, well, you've taken too much. Well, who's to tell me how much I should take? Shouldn't that be based on my ability to earn? But see, they don't view it that way. They look at it as that's government's job. But understand, he owns 4 different homes. You knew that, right?
I did not know he owned 4, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Martha's Vineyard, Chicago, Washington, and Hawaii. They got 4 mansions in those places worth millions. Plus, they're worth millions. Anytime they go places, they speak and people throw money at them and what have you. So,
as long as he's got a teleprompter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's good at, going off the cuff, right?
No, he starts to stutter and.
Yeah, he does. He's got a stuttering problem, but, he's a sharp guy. He's great at words, but I don't know. He doesn't really deliver to the average person. And that's why I think so many people in middle America don't see eye to eye with Mr. Obama, but the left-wing elite do. And then the people who he's promised things to that are on the government plantation, they seemingly, adore him. But it's a weird thing. Gavin Newsom is introducing that bill for free housing. Wow. I did not know that. That's interesting. I will look into that because that does affect things here in this state. I don't know how that's going to be funded when we have such a huge deficit right now. I don't know where he's going to get the money for that, but
I like what Trump calls him. Nabagoo. No, I can't even say it. Nabagoo scum.
Oh, Newscum?
Newscum, yeah.
Yeah.
Gavin Newscum. There we go.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can spit that out.
Color is just melanin levels. Lying is my number 1 pet peeve. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just find it particularly egregious when it comes from politicians because they know better and they have the power over us. It's like when law enforcement does shit that's wrong, they have the power over the people. And so when they abuse that power, it's even worse to me, And so I look at politicians that way, right? We've elected them and we've entrusted them with certain responsibilities to do the will of the people. But unfortunately, they don't really view it that way themselves. And they're just a bunch of fucking liars that are up there doing the bidding from the people that they're beholden to, which is the special interest groups. So it's a different kind of evil. It's called the California Dream Plan for All. Wow. Does that include people who are actually living in this country that are legal citizens as well? You get $150,000 for free housing because that would in fact be for all. So they need to live up to that name. But again, that's probably just, right? So that's just messaging, propaganda.
Mm-hmm. And then when you get there, they'll say, "Oh no, sorry, you make too much. You don't qualify."
Right. Yeah. So I wanted to touch bases on this issue that we had this week, where I was able to, I guess, just save us some money. And what it boils down to is Rebecca had some problems with her car, and she took her car in on the 8th of this month. And it sat at the dealership for about
2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. They had to order a part, right? And then they had to put the part on. So they did that. After 2 weeks, they gave Rebecca a call and said, "Hey, come pick up your car. It's ready."
I'd like to say that they gave me a call. They gave me a text message.
Okay. Well, they texted you, let you know. So you went up there and you got in your car and you started driving home. And then lo and behold, you wound up with the same issue that you took it there for. It started spitting out coolant all over the engine. It basically overheated and died. And
I coasted it into a parking lot.
Yeah. And she didn't even make it home. She called me. And so I came, and picked her up and waited until we got a tow truck. And so we got a tow truck at our own expense, sent it back to the dealership, and said, "Hey, we didn't even make it home. It's still got the same problem. You need to fix this." And so they keep the car for another couple days, and then she gets an email. Was it an email, or they call you?
Another text message.
Another text message, and the text message was basically indicating that we owed an additional $4,000 to the $2,000 we already had paid them for the work that they had done, which they didn't really do. And so right away I said, no, we're not paying that. We're gonna insist that they fix this. But before we do, I want to contact the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And this is something that I want to tell anybody who owns a car. If you own a car and you at some point plan on taking it someplace to get it repaired, this is going to be a good tool in your pocket to know who to call and who to contact in your area, in your local state, or whatever. Here in California, it's called the Bureau of Automotive Repair, and it's through the Consumer Affairs Division. And that right there is the regulatory agency that oversees not only selling of vehicles, but repairing of vehicles. And so they don't like to hear from that. They don't want to hear anything about the Bureau of Automotive Repairs. That's like having the IRS crawl up their ass. And so what I had done, and I asked Rebecca to do the same thing. She called me while I was at the gym, and I said, why don't you, call the bar and see if they think it's a valid claim. And so I did it. She did it as well. We both talked to somebody. They both, two separate people, said, yeah, it sounds like you have a valid claim. So here's the process. You're going to, file it online. You're going to get a response back in 7 to 10 days. We'll start a case number from that point forward, and then we'll start our investigation. And so at that point, armed with that information, I got in touch. I called the dealership. Rebecca had asked me to do that because
they already knew my number, and I was assuming that, any call that I had made after they took my car, it always went to a voice message. Nobody ever picked it up. So I asked him to make the call because they didn't have his telephone number.
Right. So I called and I got a hold of the guy who was the service coordinator of the repairs for her vehicle, Jason. And he answers, hey, this is Jason. I said, hey, Jason, my name's Eric Johnson. My wife brought her car up to you a couple of weeks ago, and she had some work done. We just brought it back because it needed additional repairs. And I understand that it needs additional repairs, and there's an additional bill attached to that. I said, I would like you to explain to me why it is that we are expected to pay for that bill. And so he went through his thing. Oh, well, it's got, fluid in the number 3 cylinder and a warped head and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I said, well, Jason, it didn't have that when we brought it to you. And now it does have that, and you didn't fix the problem. So therefore, I believe that this could, in fact, be a result of what you didn't do that we paid you to do. And I said, I'm going to bring this to your attention ahead of time because I want to resolve this at the lowest possible level. But I've already been in contact with the Consumer Affairs Division and contacted the Bureau of Automotive Repair, talked to some people there, and they believe we have a valid claim. And so I said, I would like to handle this at the lowest possible level. And that's why I'm bringing it to your attention in this way. But if we don't get that resolve, I'll be proceeding forward, but I don't have any intention on paying you additional money. And so he's like, oh, yeah, I understand your concern. I can't make that call. I'll have to, forward you to, my boss, who's the guy. I said, he's out of the office right now, but, I'll give you his voicemail. And, I said, well, hold on a second, Jason. I said, I just talked to you. And what I would prefer is that you take this information directly to him, because what I don't want to have happen is me act like an asshole I don't want this guy to think that I'm an asshole for leaving this on his answering machine. We just spoke. And I want you to take that to him. And he says, oh, yeah, well, he's left the office. I'll see what I can do. And not 37 minutes later, I get a phone call. Oh, hey, Mr. Johnson, we've got, he's actually, in his office. And I spoke to him. He said, we're going to handle that. And I said, so you guys are going to take care of all the repairs and they're going to be no cost encumbered to us? I said, he says, yeah, we'll take care of it. And I said, well, thank you. I said, here's what I want you to know, Jason. I said, I want you to tell this to your boss as well. I say, on the behalf of my wife and I want to thank you for pursuing it in resolving this in this way, because if in fact we hadn't done that, you may have saved a few bucks on the front end, but let me tell you something, you would have lost a future customer. I said, we bought this vehicle here and we brought it back to you to have it repaired in good faith. And now that you're going to honor that, it might change my mind with regard to wanting to do future business with you. So again, I want to thank you, and I'll be looking forward to hearing from you soon. And that was essentially the conversation. So that was a number of days ago, like two days ago. I think it was on a Friday or something like that. But this is something that I want people to have knowledge of, because you need to know what the agencies are, or the levers that you have at your disposal to make these sort of moves. Because now, had she called and tried to do this, there may have been a different response. These type of places are notoriously good at messing with people, right? And this isn't some shady business or whatnot. This is a reputable dealership. But nonetheless, if they think that there's some way that they can get over on somebody and it's not going to cost them anything, because they're paying their mechanics $100 an hour or whatever they're paying them, right? So this is more work out of their thing, and replacement parts and everything else. They're just going to charge the consumer. Well, guess what? I ain't fucking paying for that. You guys did this. And so again, it's really good to know what's available to you in your specific state. California, it's the Bureau of Automotive Repair, but I can almost assure you that if you go and you're in Florida, you're in some other state, just look up Bureau of Automotive Repair and see what comes up, and see it's probably going to be some .gov or something like that, right? Some government affiliated regulatory agency that is going to be your friend in that regard. You know, that's one instance where government is actually going to be a useful tool for you, right? Because people can fuck you over. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out to you. But 37 minutes, that was basically solved. And all it took was one phone call to the Bureau of Automotive Repair.
However, I still don't have my car back yet.
No, but it's only been a couple of days. We'll hear from them soon. So, yep. So where are we? Let's see here. Let's get to a did you know? I think we've ranted enough about these ridiculous politicians.
Are you sure?
I don't know, man. They I could keep going, but what's the point? I think the bigger point is just knowing that they're not on our side, and it's up to us to go out and to try to make, good decisions as far as making our life better. Right. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing. That's all we're doing. But, let's get into this. Did you know? This is kind of, along the same lines as those old timey like phrases that people say, but they don't really know what the origin is. So here you are.
Still used today and where they originated from. During the medieval market days, merchants would sell piglets in bags to buyers, but sometimes they would deceptively substitute cats. So when buyers discovered the trick, the cat was literally out of the bag, revealing the deception, leading to the phrase, "cat's out of the bag," for exposing a secret. During the age of exploration and the era of trade ships in the early modern period, ships often encountered large sheets of ice blocking their path in the seas. So the practice of sending smaller ships to break the ice and clear a path became essential for trade and communication. Thus, the term break the ice originated from this nautical practice and later evolved to mean breaking down social barriers or initiating conversation. During the 19th century in England, cakewalk competitions were popular at social gatherings. Participants walked in a circle and the best walk won a cake. The easy nature of winning these competitions led to the phrase piece of cake, meaning something very easy to accomplish. During the 19th century in England, punishments for lying or misconduct were severe. One such punishment involved cutting out a person's tongue to silence and shame them, allegedly fed to cats, leading to the phrase, "cat got your tongue," meaning why so quiet or unable to speak.
Yeah, that last one's a little harsh. That's quite the punishment. Get your tongue cut out. Holy smokes, man. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that, Rebecca?
It's pretty interesting to find out where they came from. But,
Yeah.
you catch yourself saying those sayings, but not knowing where they came from.
Yeah. The origins of them are very simple. It's just a thing that happened, and they just kind of stuck. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it's just something that kept getting repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah. London says he likes those segments, so that's cool. Maybe we'll keep doing them. I don't know. I don't know. I like learning new stuff, and it's kind of interesting when you've been knowing something your whole life or hearing a thing and you don't realize, oh, really? That's where it got its thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me. But yeah, where do you want to go from here? What do you want to talk about? Got anything else?
I could say this. I did make the deodorant. It does have a nice lavender scent.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of making labels for that. And so it should be up on the webpage shortly.
Yeah. We'll see what we can do getting that up. And if that's something you're interested in checking out, it'll be up there. But one thing also too, man, we've been just knocking it out of the park with our sleep. I'm telling you, that is one of the best things ever. I think we get accustomed to like these just go, and you don't take time to really manage your sleep. But that is such a restorative period and such a thing that we all need. Your body tells you when you need it. When you're tired, you're going to go to sleep, right? You just can't stay awake, and your body's telling you that. It's an interesting process that we all go through. And so we've been just making a really concerted effort of doing better at that. And I actually slept for 9 hours and 43 minutes last night, which is like unheard of. I haven't done that since I was like 17. I don't know what's going on with that, but what we have been doing. I don't think
you've ever done that in your entire life.
No, when I was a kid, I was, when you're growing, you can sleep a lot. You're a growing teen or whatever. You can sleep till 11 a.m. or something, but I now wake up when the sun comes up. So that's why I need to go to bed a little bit earlier. And I have no problem doing that. So I take my phone, and by 8 o'clock, I'm not looking at any bullshit on my phone or whatever. And we're typically horizontal. We've already eaten dinner. And in between 8 and 8:30, we'll be asleep. And then by the time we wake up at 5 or 6 a.m., we've gotten 8 to whatever hours of sleep. And I've actually, over the last week since this last live stream, that's been my weekly average is just a little over 9 hours every night, which is incredible. I don't usually sleep that well. And so it's just a really good thing that we've been trying to do. And that's why we've been on here earlier this week. So I hope you all can get some sleep and find time to do the things that are important to you, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or am I more tired? No, I'm not more tired. I feel like actually way better because I haven't been drinking any alcohol either. Haven't had any alcohol for probably a couple months. And I've been eating a certain way for a couple of months. It's just all whole food diet, no ultra processed bullshit, like zero. It's just all meat, eggs, cheese, vegetables, fruit, nuts, seeds, that kind of thing, coffee, and that's all I'm eating. It's great. Let's see here.
I just have to say that this particular diet requires using a lot of dishes. So I have ended up having to wash more dishes than ever.
Right.
It seems like.
Right. Yeah. Skane says she gets excited when she gets 5.5 hours of sleep. I think that's pretty typical for a lot of people. It probably isn't what your body actually wants, but we operate a lot of times on less than what we need. That's just the way that the modern human animal is, quite honestly. We're always pushing ourselves to, whatever. I mean, if you actually, I don't know, I find it hard to sleep, quite honestly, because my mind's always like going. But if you can disengage from the media, that's a big one right there. Just put that shit away and just like stop looking at stuff and then just lay down and start breathing and just, it's nice.
I don't have that problem.
No, she doesn't. She sleeps way better than me.
Good sleeper.
She sleeps way better than me, but whatever. So, I had one more. I think this is just the clip of the week. Kind of goes along with the theme of this week. We were talking a little bit about racial politics. And again, I only bring that stuff up because, they bring it up. They're the ones that want to inflect that, put you in a box. And that's what government does. They have to, hey, what constituency group are you in? How can we, manipulate the vote to our advantage by saying the right things or changing the tone of our voice or whatever. And so, we've got that now in the person who's running. She's pretty capable. She's capable of getting up there and doing the things that they want her to do. She hasn't done much of them. She's kind of hiding like Biden, right? But in any event, here's the clip.
What makes you think she's capable if she's hiding like Biden?
Well, she's capable of doing that. She's doing what they want. She's carrying the water. She's going to do and say what it is that they want her to say.
Yes, but I wouldn't say she's capable of being president.
I don't believe she is. But here's the thing. We have a president right now who's absent, right? He's not good enough for...
He wasn't capable of being president either.
I know. So who's running the country? That's the question, right?
Well, not them.
No. So anyhow, here's the clip of the week.
The new Kamala. She's compassionate, likable, brilliant, black, fashionable, black, creative, not an Indian, and black. Prepare to be amazed by the new, more intelligent, more likable, even blacker Kamala Harris, the new presidential candidate we chose for you.
There you go. That's the clip of the week. just hoping to inject a little bit of humor into this, ridiculous process that we're undergoing and we're witnessing the electoral, the election season. It's definitely silly season, and I think we're all along for the ride. But again, going back to what we started out talking about, just making sure that you guys are focusing on what it is that's important to you, and we're going to have to endure the next few months as this political season heats up. And I really do think that it could be anything that comes our way. Could it be a cyber thing? Of course, 100% it could. Could it be, some kind of a civil unrest thing that's manufactured? Of course it could. Anything's on the table. Could it be another person getting shot? Could it be, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And then hopefully, we're all prepared in a way that, suits us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's blacker than black. Yeah, man. Yeah, they will uncork something. I think Hog says she's blacker than black. Yeah, she's not even really that dark, She's pretty light-skinned black, I guess. But whatever. I mean, I'm not like dwelling on that. It's just, it's amazing that people place so much emphasis in ethnicity. And I just don't think that that's what this country really should be about. Obviously when you look at somebody, you say, hey, that person is whatever, right? They're Chinese or they're, Asian or whatever. And that's just your first blush. Hey, there's a white person, right? There's a black dude, whatever.
But we've talked about this. I mean, you look at people and you don't really know what that person is. And the example that I used before was our son being in the bar and a black lady talking to him and then talking to him about.
No, she was a white lady. She was a white lady talking about you've got white guilt or what? What's the thing they use?
She told him that he had white privilege.
White privilege. That's
so
it.
I thought it was a black lady that was saying that.
It was a white broad, man, and that's who throws that shit around is white women. Is throw that around, oh, you've got white privilege, they have some kind of chip on their shoulder or whatever. And they feel like they need to, on the behalf of black people, feel sorry for them and make amends or some bullshit. That's what that's coming from. Black women don't running around talking about white privilege.
But then when he goes and shows a picture of who his grandpa is, She left. My understanding is that she never returned to the
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah. He listened to her and he was having fun with it, and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I only bring this stuff up, guys, because
His
it is
mentors. That's the word I was looking for. Anyway, sorry.
Because it's so ridiculous. I don't identify in that way. I don't like to push racial issues. I don't look to somebody to like say, oh, you're doing this to me because of this, or whatever. No, if you're doing something to me, it's because I've got that coming, or that's the way you're responding to me based on something else. If I just don't see that in my life. I know some people do. I know some people have been discriminated against because of their skin color or their gender or their whatever. I understand that exists. I'm just saying in my life, that hasn't been my experience. And so I don't carry myself around with that chip on my shoulder, where other people, I think they live that way. And then they buy into the other people that are saying, oh, you're a victim. You have these things to, you can blame that person, or this part of society has done you wrong. And there's just so much opportunity to be whoever you want to be in this country. And it's the greatest country that has ever really existed. I think we're headed in a tremendously unfortunate way. Mm-hmm. It's really bad right now as far as how divided this country is, and the forces at work behind the scenes that we're all getting to kind of witness now as the mask is coming off from, how the sausage is being made. I think that that's really a frightening prospect for a lot of people, because we see what we have the ability to lose. And so I just hope things, start to even out, but I don't know if they are. And just do your best to prep,
Yes.
So anyhow, you got anything else to say, Rebecca?
I don't think so.
Okay. I had one more thing to say, and this is just another quote. And this is from that same gentleman, Thomas Sowell, because I do respect him so much, and he's got a lot of very worthwhile quotes to research. But this goes along with tonight's theme. And the quote is, when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And that's so very true for, politicians. They're going to tell you what they want to, what you want to hear. Right? You're going to tell them what they want to hear instead of telling them the truth. You're not going to tell black people, hey, you know what? You can go out there and fucking do this thing, and this is all you have to do. Pull your goddamn pants up. Don't look like a thug, and go work hard and be respectful. You can make something of yourself. I've seen plenty of black people do it. But I've also seen a lot that feel like, hey, I can just be whoever I want to be, and people have to accept me for that. Well, that's not how it fucking works, man. It's not how it works in society. You don't just get to create your own rules and then tell people how they need to respond to you. They're going to respond to you in kind if you provide, some value to them, right? But politicians are all about telling you, hey, you need reparations. You need this. You need me to keep you on the government plantation. Oh, we need to build some housing for you because you're not capable of doing this on your own. I get it, man. People need a leg up or whatever, but that's not really the fucking government's job. The government's job is to get out of your way and allow you to prosper, create an environment where people can go out there and actually earn a living with reduced taxes and do the things that they're supposed to do. Water, right? Clean water, maybe make some roads, stuff like that. Be a regulatory agency that's going to protect those things. So we have the ability to move commerce and to do, there's a lot of things that government does that I think is of benefit, but a lot of what they do isn't anything that we've asked them to do. What they need to do is just get out of people's way instead of creating these incentives to keep them on the plantation. So I don't know.
Well, I could understand how some, and I think we've discussed this before, but such as the welfare, I could understand starting somebody out, but definitely not at minimum wage, or maybe at the very beginning minimum wage, but then cutting it back, because you don't want that person to sit back and say, well, why should I go work? I can just sit here and live on welfare and have another baby.
That's the
get
whole
a little
point.
bit more of the,
That's the whole
I know,
point.
but that's where people should be able to open up their eyes, but they're not going to, because that's the easy way.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And that's the reason why people roll their window down at the stop sign to give that fucking hobo some money, is so that they stay right there. If you want to help that hobo, invite him to your house and give him a job if you really cared. But people don't. They want to feel good about what they've been able to do for somebody, but you're not doing anything but enabling them to stay there and do the exact same thing. That's how I feel about it. You know, and that may be the wrong opinion for some, but I don't really care. That's what I see. And, you know, if you really wanted to help that person, you do something to uplift them. Show them how to catch a fish. Don't just bring them fish. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this country allows you to do if, in fact, you have any inclination of being somebody. But as soon as you start to rise up into the middle class, the elites and the politicians want to knock you back down.
Oh, we got to smash you.
No, because they want you on the plantation. That's the whole point. So I don't know. Yeah. We do need to keep mentoring people. It's all in the messaging for the next generation, because, you know, many of us are kind of, you know, cresting the hill and we're heading on the other side. But the young people that are coming up, they're going to be ones that are influenced by the machine, and the machine just keeps getting stronger and more powerful, more corrupt. And like I said earlier, those people in North Korea that were waving their flags, they thought, oh man, this is great. You know, they don't have any other influence. They don't have any other way or basis to know what it's like outside of North Korea. They actually believe they're going to be bombed tomorrow. Some of them, right? They don't have cell phones. They don't have the ability to know what it's like elsewhere. So they're either doing what they're doing because they know that their head's going to get chopped off if they don't, or they truly are believers because they don't have any other information. And if we don't, as people, continue to push, you know, history along and keep it on the correct course from the standpoint of what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I know, but, you know, there are people that know, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I do know?
What?
I know that I need to cook you dinner.
Yeah, it's about that time, I think. I think we're going to probably wrap it up, guys. Thanks, Hogs, man. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, stay strong, dude. And that's a wise quote right there from Without Training Wheels. Says freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It's so true, man.
Yes.
It is so true. So, yeah. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it as always. I think we're gonna get going and yeah, try to get some sleep, because that's how we roll.
We're getting old.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely getting old.
Let's see here. Michael wants to pipe in right now. Says, let's start with defining freedom. Let's see the best definition of freedom. Defining freedom. Yeah, it's an individual choice. It's an individual thing. I don't really think that there is absolute and true freedom, quite honestly, because you can't do everything that you want to do. If you wanted to do, you know, we all have parameters we have to fall in a society. You know, there's rules that you have to follow. When you're driving your car, you don't just get the freedom to go the fucking opposite direction without penalty, right? So, you know, freedom is, there's a lot of gray area there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, freedom of speech. You don't get to say anything. You can say it, but there's going to be a penalty for that. So again, like I say, how do we actually define freedom? That's an interesting question, because I don't think that it actually exists. I think the only real freedom is those that are outside of what we're doing here on earth, right? in reality. When I look at true freedom, I look at something like an eagle or a predator animal that's kind of at the top of their chain. Now, of course, we could kill it, right? Shoot it or whatever. But if they are at the top of their chain from the standpoint of a predator animal, that's freedom, man. Like an eagle or something like that flying around, or even a buzzard. I mean, just think about how free they are. They don't know any of the shit we're dealing with. And I'm not saying I want to be a buzzard, but I'm just saying, like, when you start talking about freedom and you think about...
But he would like to be an eagle if you can't tell.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Right? I mean, that would just be pretty cool for a minute. But yeah, I agree, man. Freedom, it's something to think about. We have more freedom here than exists anywhere on the planet. That's for sure. And I'm very grateful of that. I'm thankful for that. But we also have to keep, a recognition that it's not actually freedom, because there are those rules we have to keep ourselves within. You can try as much as you want to escape it, but there's always going to be somebody telling you to do something. So, I mean, that's, it's an illusion. Well, yeah, I guess. I think we're more free than a lot of other societies. So again, I think that's great. But again, thanks guys for joining us tonight. And that's about all I had, unless Miss Rebecca has something that she would like to add in closing. You good?
I'm good. I want to thank you all for dropping in. We really appreciate you all showing up.
Yeah. So good night, guys. We'll see you next week.
Good night.